In this pleasure-seeking world, are you ready to take up Jesus' cross and follow him? People in the modern world do not like to accept the sufferings and hardships of life. Today's trend is to pursue comforts and success in life. Many of us like our things to be in order. We are happy when things are under control. However, when there is a chaos and when things go out of control, we also tend to break down emotionally. Most of us do not have the courage to accept suffering, pain, and loss. From their childhood, kids are taught to avoid suffering and to achieve success in life. Parents never allow their children to go through difficulties and hardships. As a result of that, our younger generation has become a group of comfort seekers. When tragedy and sufferings come in their way, they do not know how to deal with that. Many of them commit suicide or become mental patients because they cannot endure the sufferings in life. Therefore, we must remember that sufferings are part and parcel of our life, and we should learn how to cope with those sufferings. Today's gospel also speaks about the salvific value of suffering. When they came to Caesarea Philippi, Jesus asked a very special question from his disciples. He asked, "Who do people say I am?" When they expressed different ideas of people about Jesus, he asked them a very personal question. "Who do you say I am?" Then Simon Peter, inspired by the Holy Spirit, made the declaration, "You are the Messiah," or "You are the Christ." Although Peter recognized Jesus as the Messiah, he misunderstood the concept of Messiah. He thought that Jesus is the political Messiah who would overthrow the Roman rule with military might. However, then Jesus began to explain his mission as God's Messiah. He revealed them that he has to become the suffering servant of God as the Messiah. He foretold that Son of Man would be rejected by the elders and chief priests. Moreover, he would suffer many things and be killed, and he would rise again on the third day. This revelation shattered the hopes of Peter. Then, taking Jesus aside, he began to protest. Next, Jesus began to rebuke Peter, saying, "Get behind me, Satan. You are thinking not as God does, but as people do." Jesus wanted his followers to endure sufferings and hardships. Jesus did not come into the world to teach how to avoid suffering and how to succeed in life. He did not teach the science of happiness. Rather, he invited them to take the hard road. He plainly told, "If you want to follow me, deny yourselves, take up your cross and follow me." Therefore, the only way that leads to heavenly victory is suffering. In the first reading today, Prophet Isaiah describes the oracle of the suffering servant of Yahweh. In this vision, the suffering servant willingly accepts the violent maltreatment and the insults inflicted upon him. He does not rebel against his persecutors. They strike on his back, pull out his beard, slap and spit on him. Yet, the suffering servant is confident that God Yahweh would deliver him and let him rise victoriously. We find the fulfillment of this prophecy in the passion, death, and resurrection of Jesus Christ. If we look into our own lives, none of us like to face sufferings. But the question is, do we try to find God's plan for us through the sufferings? Do we see the salvific value of suffering? If we do not have the spiritual capacity to endure sufferings, we would always try to avoid the hard realities of life. In today's society, there are people who are always seeking pleasure and thrill. In order to avoid sufferings, they would recourse to drinks, drugs, pornography, adultery, gambling, and many other vices. We must realize that if we are pleasure seekers and if we do not like to bear our crosses, then we cannot bear any responsibility in life. Those pleasure seekers are very selfish and they don't want to do any service to the society. They are willing to gain more and not ready to sacrifice. Today, Jesus Christ tells us that we cannot be his followers if we deny his cross. Therefore, as Christians, let us follow the example of the suffering servant of Yahweh. Let us take up our crosses and follow Jesus Christ till the very end.